The growing calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on Sunday.
This is about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
Guys up!
Giddy up, y'all.
Oh boy, this is going to be an embarrassing show. Welcome to Failure to Stop Nightshift. This is the Failure to Stop podcast channel, and you're tuning in to Nightshift, the True Crime Tuesday show. Tonight's show is brought to you by ghostbed.com /Wolfpack. You'll hear that ad read later. If you haven't noticed, if you're watching live, I'm sitting in my son's studio right now because my son's show, Grommet Vomit Podcast, had a very famous person on, and the guy could only come on at 7, and they just kept going and going. And so I didn't have time to switch the studio. So here I am. But if you want to support the show, go leave us a 5-star rating and review so we can read it on Friday. We do 4 shows a week on this channel. We do the True Crime Tuesdays, which is all the mayhem and murder with the beautiful and audacious Andrea up late. Every Thursday coming out on audio is Last Call with myself and sometimes Dead Like Media. And we're giving you all the other things to talk about, all the other news besides the job, so that you don't sound like an asshole cop to your civilian friends on the weekend. We give you something else to talk about other than dead babies and domestic violence. Friday's our flagship show with myself and Drew Breezy. And Thursday nights, the new show, Com Center, with Drew Breezy and Jonathan Bates. And that is, it's a show they're working on. They're working out the kinks of it. It's a very difficult show, especially when they don't have their own producer. So be with them as they work through the kinks. The show is going to be a bomb-ass show once they get it going and off the ground. It's just the first couple of weeks have been some technical difficulties, just like when Andrea started. We all know how that turned out. Absolute train wreck. But such is the life. Is there any true crime news updates? Oh, wait, before you get started on the true crime updates, Friday show. You're not going to, last Friday show, one of the best shows we've ever done. That's 2 Fridays in a row that we've heard that the 2 best Fridays. And last night shift was the best night shift. We're on a fucking roll in 2023. Now that all the technical issues are out of the way, we're on a roll, baby. But this Friday, super important show. And I think it's important for every law enforcement officer, first responder. It's the one thing that needs to be said. It's not said enough. And I'm going to break it down to you on Friday, and it'll be very almost rant heavy. And there's a lot of lessons that we can learn from shit that's happened in the news lately. So get ready for that. But enough of that. It's time for True Crime Tuesday. We don't want to hear about any of this other shit. We want to hear all the murder and the mayhem, the guts and the gore, any true crime news updates, and what is the show about tonight? I don't even know what tonight's show is about.
I know. Can you guys hear me okay? We didn't do much of a...
Yes, I can hear you fine. I'm going to mute my mic for just a second while somebody fixes the camera, but you just go on with that fucking true crime news there. Hey there, Sugar Lips. Go ahead and give us the true crime news, won't you?
I'm on it. All right, guys. So we're still talking about Brian Kohlberger, who's the suspect, the guy who's been arrested in connection with the Idaho murders of the 4 college students in Moscow, Idaho, back on November 13th, I believe. So we're starting to learn more and more about his background. And that's what I said that I've been wanting to hear. What do friends and relatives or peers at school say about him? But even better, I think we have his own words. And so we found a forum, some online forum. He was kind of present on a few of them over the years. And back in 2011, he was particularly involved in this one. And so it's pretty interesting. You can see very clearly what looks like schizoid or some sort of psychopathy going on here with him, probably starting around the time he was around 18, which makes sense. We've talked about that before with a timeline on this. On a side note, I think Eric is taking selfies, but it's fine. It's all fine. And so,
Oh, I'm having so much fun. If you're not following our YouTube channel, I'm sorry to interrupt. If you're not following our YouTube channel, we do a live watch along. I look like an absolute idiot right now. I'm sitting in my son's studio. It's a picture I have to paint. I'm sitting in my kid's studio and for his show Grommet Vomit, and there's like this skateboarding Vans poster with this dude like alling on top of my head right now. Like it's all skate-centric, and there's like a news platform desk, and I don't look true crime right now at all. I look stupid, but I like it. Whatever. Who cares?
I like it. I actually do like it.
Yeah, I'm glad
So, so we are already into 2023, if you can believe it. But this forum that Brian Kohlberger was commenting on started in around 2011. So we're looking at, 12 years ago. He's currently 28, I believe. So you'd be looking at around 17, 18 that he really starts to have these thoughts, and that he posts these about himself. So I will read. We know that he posted in an online forum that he had crazy thoughts and delusions of grandeur. So it's interesting that at that age, he was diagnosing that symptom with the actual term, the medical term for it, delusions of grandeur, right? And so that's where someone can feel big in any kind of way. So that can lead to like manic spending. They think that they have the money to buy all of these things. It can lead to just an importance of self that's not really accurate. It can lead to all sorts of different things depending on the person and what their diagnosis is. So he had self-described delusions of grandeur. So in January of 2011, he wrote, I have had VS. So VS is an acronym for the term visual snow. It's a brain thing. We'll talk about it. He says, I have had VS since September 21st of 2009. Since then, I have changed mainly from the anxiety and sense of derealization and hopelessness. Again, if you're just tuning in, I'm talking about the suspect that was arrested in connection with the Idaho college murders in November. These are some words he wrote back in 2011. He also said in April of 2011, in a thread where someone else was talking about VS, he wrote, I have become deep and determined on goals. It makes me smarter. So then he started liking the idea that he thinks he has this condition. Now, instead of it bringing anxiety and hopelessness, he feels like it's actually honing genius in him, intellect. He then in May went on to say that he has depression, no interest in activity, constant thoughts of suicide, crazy thoughts, delusions of grandeur, anxiety, poor self-image, poor social skills. And then he put in all capitalization, no emotion. He ended with, when I get home, I am mean to my family. I say and do what I want with little remorse. And then in July, I'll read one last little thing. I took a picture of this to read to you guys, but you can see a trend. You can see or hear a trend of his mental well-being, not doing so well 10 years ago. So it says, was that your? Okay.
Well,
so it says, no, never mind. Ignore me. It says in a July 11th post, he allegedly wrote, I have had this horrible depersonalization go on in my life for almost 2 years. I often find myself making simple human interactions, but it's as if I am playing a role-playing game. As I hug my family, I look into their faces. I see nothing. It's like I'm looking into a video game, but less. I am blank. I have no opinion. I have no emotion. I have nothing. Finally, he said, I have just accepted my visual snow. Finally, I don't even feel the need to stay away from the forum. It doesn't scare me anymore. Anyone else come to terms? ? I feel like coming to terms could be a bad thing, though. So it's like he's giving in to this thing that he says he has. Quickly, a definition of visual snow is that it's also known as visual static. It's a very uncommon neurological condition in which the affected individuals see white or black dots or transparent dots in part of the whole of their visual field. So think starburst sometimes, or actually what if you're of a certain age, like I am, you're going to remember what static looks like on TV, right? Just the black and white fuzz. That can be one of the symptoms. Maybe transparent dots. The condition is typically always present and can last for years. Migraine is common with this. anyway, it's interesting. We're seeing that maybe he wasn't mentally healthy for a long time. And I think that that's not super surprising.
I'm gonna blame it on the soy. There's too much soy going on. IPAs. You know that IPAs give you bitch tits too? Lower your testosterone a bunch? Like hops?
Does it have extra soy?
I just learned that tonight. I mean, I learned
hold
it
on.
this week.
Hold on. What's your reasoning for saying, does it have extra soy?
Oh, no, I don't know. But I mean, soy, like all the soy shit's been lowering people's testosterone. Joe Rogan talks about it all the time, so it must be true.
Well, it causes what's called gynecomastia, which is enlarged tissue in the breast.
That's
in
IPAs.
men.
I heard that IPAs called
soy.
bitch tits and lower T. Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe hops is like I'm not a fucking scientist. I just heard this week
you came at
that
it like
IPAs lower your testosterone and give you bitch tits. So I'm wondering if this guy eats too much soy and drinks IPAs. That's where I was going with all that. A little scatterbrain tonight. Andrea, go easy on daddy. A little scatterbrain tonight.
He is from Washington State. He may drink IPAs.
Oh, I'm sure he does, dude. Have you seen that guy? Seen a picture of him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's a soy boy. He's a little soy boy.
So the judge has delayed Kohberger's preliminary hearing until June at the defense request.
Of course. Like they're going to delay it. I mean, that's par for course.
Yeah. But I mean, just to update that, because it had been set for a little bit earlier on. Also, they halted the clean immediately. So the day that they apprehended him, the day that they went to Pennsylvania and arrested Kohberger, that was the same day that remediation of the rental property where the murder took place was set to happen. So remediation, like the cleaning, the scouring after this horrible event, right? So they halted the clean of that immediately upon getting him in custody, thankfully.
GG's my guy just donated 50 bones. It says the voices told me to. Well, let those voices keep singing in your ears. That's the Holy Spirit telling you to just keep sending money to Nightshift so that we can get better equipment for Drew Breezy and Jonathan. What's tonight's story about? What's the mayhem and murder tonight?
Yeah, tonight I'm actually so Jonathan Bates, you can find him at Difficult to Look at Pictures. He's actually he's the illustrator of Eric's book, Pig Latin, and he's also now a co-host on Failure to Stop on the Thursday show Comm Center with Drew Breezy. Jonathan sent me this idea for a case tonight. So we're going to go with this. It's the Bill and Peggy Stephenson case. It's out of Kentucky from 2011. So this is it's not that it's not widely known. It's on some podcasts. It was on Unsolved Mysteries. Like, it has gained some national attention. I think that there's been a little bit of an update in the past year. It's an unsolved case. Like I said, from 2011. And so I think that I think the best thing at this point, other than obviously the case or bring case, would be just some like national news attention, because it's pretty interesting. It's terrible. But like I said, it's been over a decade with not a lot of movement. Although, while not as, eerie as the Delphi case, there are some strange components. And I do believe fully that this is one of the cases that we talk about every single week that we don't know half. We don't even know 89% of what authorities know here. And I think that they've kept a lot of things close at hand, as they should. But yeah, let's talk about it and see what you guys think. It's kind of interesting. And yeah, I don't know.
I'm excited to hear it. Brittany Faulkner's dropping 5 bones on us tonight. Thank you so much. Chris Dreyer sending us $10. I appreciate it. A lot of people asking about my book since you brought it up. There's actually a big breaking news in the book today before we jump into the show today. For those of you who are wondering, I'll just come out and say it. We were going to make a run at the New York Times bestseller. I was working with a company. I'm still working with the same company. I'm not going to not work with them. But we have spent the last 2 months changing the book to make it what maybe like a publisher would most like to see, I guess. I don't know. I bid in it hook, line, and sinker. I woke up today with my wife to work on the book some more and to finish it up. And I just looked at her and I said, I hate the fucking book. And she said, excuse me? I said, I hate the fucking book. I hate it. She said, what are you talking about? You've been working on this thing for 4 years. How do you hate it? And I was like, because it's not even it's not my book anymore. It's like, it's not me. It's not what it was meant to do. It's hitting the wrong demographic. The demographic that I wanted the book to hit was a very broad audience to paint a picture of exactly what police work was. To be successful, which I've never been a successful person, even my distillery. And it's whatever is the successful way to do things, I do it the opposite way. There's a right way to do things, and then there's a way to make money. I always choose the right way and not the way to make money. But I just woke up today and I texted the guys back and I said, hey guys, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I hate the book. It's not what I ever wanted it to be. It's not what I intended it to be. I loved the book the way it was. And I don't I don't really care what demographic. And you know what? I thought they were going to just be like, well, toodaloo, motherfucker. We'll see you later. And it wasn't like that at all. They were like, hey man, that's awesome. If that's the way you're going to go, we're going to back you 100%. The book was great the way you originally did it. We just think it could, if you focus on one demographic, it could probably make more money. But honestly, like if you're not about the money, like your book's going to sell a shit ton. You're going to make a lot of money anyway. If you're not worried about the New York Times bestseller, you never know. You might even make it. So as of today, I pulled the original OG file out and made a whole media kit. We worked on it for like 8 hours today, and I'm just going to send that and we're going to be done with it. So it could have been out before Christmas.
Let me ask you
I went
a question.
down this other. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I don't know how any of this works.
Me either.
At the end of the day, you can get it done however you want, right? You can self-publish and do whatever. But if you're with them, then does it behoove them to get certain books in certain categories? Is it better for them to say we need it in this category? Because I feel like for you, let's say for the author, I think that it's wiser to hit a broad spectrum of a demographic, and then as you advertise more specifically, you can pigeonhole more specifically with advertisement to certain demographics if need be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the way it is they like to lock in one demographic and just go after them. It's a lot easier marketing wise. You can dump a lot more money. So it's like if you have one demographic, let's say you have certain demographics. If you have 25 to 35-year-old males, right? And then you make it more specifically veterans. Now you can go after every single 25 to 35-year-old veteran that's on any social media platform versus trying to target everybody. Now you're putting $10 to this demographic, $10 to that demographic, $10 to that demographic. Yeah. And so you're not able to like put $100,000 into one demographic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just easier, I guess. But at the end of the day, man, like I said, the book was never about money. The book was never really about making the New York Times bestseller. It was grandiose whenever I pitched the book, and they were really excited about it. And they're like, if we just do these kind of changes and we target it on this, and it just got to be too much for me. I pretty much felt like I've rewritten the whole entire book, and I've done it with no joy. And so now when I go back and read it, and I'm going to have to do the audiobook, I'm not happy reading it because I'm like, man, I don't know. It's like, I didn't want to write a book that was action packed and, punchline every 5 seconds. I wanted to make a book that explained to you exactly what it's like to be a cop, not grandiose, not overly negative, not overly positive, just exactly what it's like. I wanted you to feel like you went through a whole entire cop career in one book, and you laughed, you cried, and everybody liked the book that read it. It wasn't until, you know what I mean? Like everybody loved the book that's read it so far with zero complaints.
Well, then it sounds like you're making your choice, make it the way you want it.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I mean,
I think you should.
See what happens. I'm going to do whatever I want. You're not my real mom. Look, I feel like a child sitting at the set.
Like I feel like it doesn't matter if people are listening, it won't matter, but I feel really close and like big in the thing, and you're like, yeah, farther back. All right. Whatever. So let's take it back to May 2011 in Kentucky, the end of May 29th. Okay. So it's starting to get pretty warm outside. In fact, it's Memorial Day weekend this weekend. So we're talking about Bill and Peggy Stephenson. Now, in this town, so this is Florence, Kentucky. It's Boone County, Kentucky. This couple they are both 74 years old. They're approaching their 55th wedding anniversary, and just like the sweetest pillars of their community. Like, I know it's joked about, Jonathan mentioned it earlier, no one who's lame or boring or terrible ever dies. It's always like the kindest, sweetest people who put light in a room, but that's literally, it's the only thing you hear about these people. They had lived there for a very long time. They have 3 grown children. At least I know of 3, a daughter and 2 sons. The daughter is pretty vocal. She's been on multiple podcasts. She will do interviews. She's retired now and has a bit more time to do these kinds of things. Her brothers are a little less interested in rehashing it. It's a bit more difficult for them to talk about it. So they just kind of don't. So she, and then Detective Coy Cox, C-O-Y, Detective Coy Cox, who's been with the police department there in Florence, Kentucky for, I think, over 19 years. He's been working this case. He's also been a bit more vocal, not in a way to sabotage the case or to harm anything. He's traveled. We'll talk about it a little bit more. He's done so much for this case. So between Coy Cox, the detective, and the daughter, there's a lot of firsthand information given, and it's pretty interesting. So Bill Stevenson, Bill was, oh my goodness, everything, right? So he was a deacon in his church. He went fishing weekly with his brother. He had a lunch meet every week with a different friend. I mean, the detectives have said that they haven't met another individual, much less at 74, who has so many different groups of friends that he hangs out with almost every day of the week. This dude's calendar is always full. Peggy was also regarded as incredibly just kind and giving and loving. She had some health stuff going on. So she just she didn't get out of the house quite as often, but she was also, like I said, just wonderful things to say. But I think she might not have been quite the social, butterfly that old Bill was. So, okay. Well, so Peggy played organ at their church. Bill, where they lived, there was a trucking route that went through. We talk about it every week. There was a trucking route that went through, and Bill set up what was called the Truckers' Chapel. So it was a church. It was like an extension of their church. Not a lot to be seen. I think it was like an aluminum trailer, but it was a place where he would go and open it up, and these truckers that are coming through on their hauls could stop and have a service if they wanted to be a part of a church service, which is pretty cool. So a lot of them got to know Bill and Peggy very well from this.
Breaker. This is Super Angel 6'9". Come in there, Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, this is glorified angel.
Sorry, I think your CB would catch fire.
I think I was just trying to come up with what trucker church would be like. He'd be like,
it's in a building.
Little John, if you'll go ahead and turn your Bibles to 1 Corinthians.
Little John is a rapper, not a trucker.
What are some other truck names? Serial killer truck driver. This is your pastor speaking. Go ahead and open up your.
That's closer. I think that's more accurate. Golly, especially with all these cases. So Bill had opened the Truckers' Chapel, and this had been pretty well established. It's been going on for a while. So just to set the scene a little bit for what their lives look like around this town in Florence, Kentucky. So one day, it's like I said, it's Memorial Day weekend in May of 2011, and Bill and Peggy, would have been known to go to church. It's a Sunday morning on the 20th. So the Friday before, their daughter had seen them because her granddaughter graduated high school. Then Saturday, their daughter spoke with Bill on the phone and didn't speak with mom. And then Sunday, when they didn't show up to church, them not showing up to church was enough to cause concern. if that lays the picture a little bit better for you. So they called him, they didn't answer. So then Bill and Peggy's daughter was kind of running around town running errands with her daughter to get graduation party supplies for the graduation party that they were holding the following weekend. And so she just called her husband and said, hey, would you go check on the house, check on mom and dad? Not answering. Right? I don't think they were too concerned. Maybe they were outside or whatever, but they didn't like that they weren't in church. So he does. He was almost home. He went back. So Bill and Peggy lived in a condo in a residential little area. Like if you picture when you can drive in some of those and you have like condos and duplexes and things like that, it sounds like a nice, neat little community. They lived in a condo toward the very back of that residential community. And where they were butted up to like some businesses and things like that. So there wasn't a lot of traffic going through there unless you lived there. But keep in mind the fact that it is in the back of this residential community. Okay. That's kind of important. So they also had a buzz-in system. So you would have to buzz to be let into the little area where their condo was, like kind of to walk in and then to go into the individual homes. Okay. So the son-in-law gets there and he stumbles upon a horrific scene. He sees that Bill and Peggy have been murdered. We'll talk about that. He calls his wife to say, you need to get over here now. He calls authorities first, and then he calls his wife, and his wife gets there. By the time she gets there, they've already put the tape up, cordoned off the area, and start to make moves with the investigation. So Bill and Peggy have been bludgeoned. Beyond recognition. There were also some stab wounds. We'll talk about what that was like later.
A trucker?
Well, that's a good question. We'll talk about who it could be, right? So
Had to be a trucker. You know what I would say, man? Like you fuck with big cats long enough, one of them's gonna bite you, right? You swim with sharks, gonna get bit by a shark. You know what I mean?
No.
Fuck with truckers long enough, gonna get serial killed.
Mm-hmm. Is that a verb?
Yeah.
Okay. So they had been posed. Now, a lot of, like I said, when I equated this to, it's nothing like Delphi in so many ways, but there are a few things that, you can think of when we talked about exactly how, with the years that have gone by and what we do and what we do and don't know about the particulars of the case. Again, we shouldn't know him, but I'm sorry, it's terrible. I know we're not in the chats, and I hate this. Tanner said, "Swim with stingrays, you'll get stung." R.I.P. Steve Irwin. We don't get Steve Irwin out your mouth. All right, we don't mess around with Steve.
Fuck five of your supervisors. Become a meme.
Nope, not doing that. Not doing that here tonight. And so, nope. And so, anyway, they had been posed. Now we do not know how they were posed, but it was without a question that they were posed. They were in two separate rooms. We do know that. This was only a 1-bedroom condo. They didn't need more than that. That's also something that we'll point out here in a little while, why that might be a little important. But so they were in two different rooms and posed. Now here's where it gets super strange. Authorities say that every room in the house had been messed with. Whoever did this, they've not ruled out that it could be more than one. Whoever did this went to every single room and was there for hours. Not FOUR4, but for hours. We don't know for how long. But they say at least 4, actually. In every single room, something had been manipulated. So that could mean that like a figurine was not now on this shelf. It was sitting on this table. This thing has been turned upside down. This item was in this one room.
To come up with that. Because you would have to have somebody in there that knew what those rooms look like to know that shit had been.
So, and now they could have, think about this. So what what I've gathered is that they knew things just looked odd. Like they could tell by looking that things had been displaced, right?
Like
Because
they put the dolls like in some kind of like perverted
no, it
position
was
or
like,
something, you know?
well, it was like
Hung the cross
so, okay,
upside down or something.
right. So I mean, they didn't say that specifically, but that could be something, right? Something that you knew wouldn't make sense for the home. So
Gotcha.
they said that even like pictures were moved. Yet, I'm sorry, John Com Center said family member was first on the scene. That's right. That's what I was just saying. So the son-in-law was the
Yeah.
first one to get there to basically do a welfare check because they had not gone to
Right.
church, right? So he walked in and then he calls his wife. So he would have right off the rip known that things were weird, probably told them as much. And then once the shock wore off, and I'm sure they went into a bit further detail with family members that would know. But they even mentioned that like I said, things would be moved from one room to the next. Like maybe it said this little thing had never lived in the living room. It was in the bedroom. Now it's in the living room. Things turned upside down on their side. Some things were marked upon, like with a writing utensil. Didn't say what it said. Just some things were marked upon. And then pictures were arranged or displayed in a way that you could almost think that some family members were liked better than others. Like what I'm telling you is the most detail they've given. So they didn't say, did they scratch out someone's face? Did they bend it in half? You know what I mean? Like they didn't say what they mean by that, but that even like to that kind of detail. And authorities have said from minute one that they don't for a moment doubt that this is what it was intended to do. Like they were supposed to know that this was a scene made for them.
Why is there a suction cup dildo attached to the oven? That's not supposed to
So
be
I
there.
was going to try to get the daughter on our show.
Can't now because I already made a dildo joke.
Now I can't. Now I cannot do that.
She won't go back and listen to this.
So anyway, it was just
I laugh because I went over to my parents' house. My parents got a new house in Savannah, and they've decorated the whole house with nothing but framed pictures of like the family. It's a brand new house, and like I don't even know how many holes they put in that wall hanging up pictures. But I just thought I'm gonna go back and like place all the pictures of me up front, try to rearrange everything.
Did you do it?
So next time no, I'm thinking now that you've said it, that's why I chuckled because I was like, dude, I think I'm gonna do that next like Thanksgiving or something before my brother gets there. I'm gonna make all the pictures like in the living room of nothing but me and move him upstairs.
Yeah, you should. So that's how it looked. Now,
you know what? I do the not to interrupt you one more time, but to interrupt you one more time. When we used to do search warrants, because I saw somebody bring it up in the chats, I used to always do that. If they weren't home and we did a search warrant on their house, if I found a dilly, I would always move it to like a kitchen drawer, or like if they had a DVD player and I found porn under the bed, I'd go downstairs and I'd put the porn in the DVD player and then close it and then turn it on, but turn the TV off. So whoever turned the TV on next, it would be up at like the title screen of the porn. We used to do that kind of stuff all the time.
Were you a police officer when you were 12?
And we'd also, if it was like really hot outside, we'd turn the heat up. If it was really cold outside, we'd turn the cold down. I mean, be home when we have a search warrant for your house, so we can arrest you.
Do people know when you're like, is it a scheduled time, or are you like the cable guy? You're like, I'll be there between 12 and 4:30.
Yeah. Oh, it sucks though. You like hit the doors, you do all this like cool damage and stuff, and then like nobody's there. You're like, damn. And you still got to search the whole house, for whatever the search warrants were. But I love, I always, if they were like real pieces of shit, and that's what the search warrant is for, I always put the sex toys in the kitchen drawers. Always. Or like in the refrigerator. I would do all sorts of weird shit like that. Underneath a couch cushion. So like, man, I can't find my bullet. And then they like lift open the couch cushion one day and they're like, oh my God, there's a vibrator down there.
So we know that they were bludgeoned and stabbed. We don't know with what. I mean, obviously you're going to be stabbed with a knife or something like that. Maybe not. We've never been told, or they've never disclosed what they think the object was. So that's one of the things we don't know. We know that the crime occurred between 1 and 4 o'clock in the morning. But had at first not known anything more specific than that until about a year later. They came forward to say that they didn't even say which of the two had a medical condition. I'm kind of assuming Peggy, just from the other things that I've read, that she was more of a homebody from some past medical issues. But someone had a mechanical device implanted that recorded real time, right? So that, think pacemaker, defibrillator, these kinds of things, they record real time so that your doctors and whomever can see when you're having these PVC or these arrhythmias in your heart, whatever. So let's just assume it was something like that. So because of that, there's an exact time. Authorities have an exact time of death, right? So that's a little gold mine in an investigation to be able to have that. So we do know exactly when they died. We don't know, but authorities do, and they've never specified that. They've kept a broader window of 1 to 4 a.m. Right? So with them knowing exactly when they died, they'll say they have some pretty adamant statements without giving more details. So they will say things like that they're certain that the murders occurred within moments of the intruder or intruders getting there. So it wasn't like they all had dinner and they all hung out and then this happened. Like if it was someone they knew in that sense. Like I said, they know that this person or these people stayed there for hours. There's actually some talk. There are a couple of detectives that believe that the murderers left and came back. At this point, you could be looking at closer to 6 o'clock in the morning, because the reason this is important is because one of the two, they've not said whom, one of the two was stabbed. Both were beaten and one was stabbed, but the stabbing happened post-mortem. They actually think within a couple of hours of death is when it happened. So quite some time has gone on. You got to think they're in the house staging this other stuff, or they leave and come back and then conduct this postmortem stabbing. So then there's some thought of if this was intended more for one person or the other. With that said, police also believe fully that they were both intended to die. Like that whoever picked to do this and chose to do this, if it wasn't random, which we kind of don't think it's random, and we'll talk about why, but let's say it's either someone they knew or someone who was watching them, it's too easy to have them separate because they are separate all the time. So he goes, like I said, fishing. He goes to all these other events and groupings and lunches and things like this. So you could easily ask him to go fishing after lunch if you need to isolate Bill. If you wanted Peggy, she's home alone while he's out doing all of these things throughout the week. So it would be too easy to find them separately if you just were interested in murdering one. Authorities have no doubt in their mind that they both were intended. There could have been a concentration on one with that postmortem stabbing, but that's kind of all we know about that. Do you have any questions before I move on?
No. Yeah. Anyway, my son is here, waiting for me to get done with the podcast, and so I think he found the drum set back there. So if you hear drums,
I can't hear it.
I'm trying to text them to shut it the fuck off. But
no.
So I mean, you're saying that it looked a little bit more personal.
Well, that if it potentially so, but that I was saying that just basically they absolutely intended for both of them to die. This wasn't an accident that they stumbled upon both of them. Like they were too easy to find separately or to isolate one or the other, that they didn't need to, they were both meant to die. Oh goodness, it's so bad. So we have the FBI profilers and the local police and detectives have called this a 1%er. They'll say that this case belongs in the 1%, and these veteran detectives who have worked multiple cases will say, this is a special one, or it's different, and it's set aside for a few reasons, and one of which is because that the person didn't flee, or the people didn't flee immediately. They did this, and they're hanging out. They're taking a lot of precious time. And they think that authorities believe that this is with the intention of someone finding them, because they think that there is a specific reason for the day of the week, maybe even the time that this happened. Bill had some ties to the military. This was Memorial Day weekend. That's kind of a weaker theory, I think, but they do think that they made this happen at a time where that they would not be present for church and that someone would find them. Tactical Dude says they felt comfortable in the house. Absolutely. So
I mean, you're doing. I mean, kind of almost sounds like it's going to be like one of these truckers. To be honest with you,
it does sound that way. So here's the thing: if it's a trucker, wouldn't it need to be a trucker who has either currently or at some point lived in that area, right? Because he's not going to drive his 18-wheeler. So the truckers that they dealt with are coming through on their routes. He's not driving his
so they don't
18-wheeler in and
They're
out.
just coming through. You know, I mean, did they have anybody? I mean, I don't know if you know the answers to these or not, but like, I mean, did they have beef with anybody? Did they have like, I mean, you know, I worked in the mission field for a little while when I was like a young Ute, when I was a youth. And I was pretty close to the church that I joined, and we went and fed the homeless and stuff, man. And like some of those homeless people, man, they were kind of shitty. They were kind of weird. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It'd be nothing for one of those homeless weirdos to, you know, stab you or something like that.
Right. So, okay. Well, so with the trucker, okay. So the theory behind the truckers, I'm not saying it wasn't one of the truckers, and I think it easily could have been, but I do think it would be one that lived there because, like I was saying, they live in a pretty quiet residential condo neighborhood in the back of the neighborhood. You're not going to barrel an 18-wheeler through there, or even leading to the entrance of the place, right? Like, so you had to have had a personal car. Someone who does, like, have other ties in the area. So there's that. So this is pretty interesting. So the couple has a nephew named Steve Stevenson. So this all happened in May of 2011. Well, Steve Stevenson had befriended or was dating, depending on what accounts you read, this woman named Lee Jennings. Okay. This was back around the same time that this murder took place. Bill and Peggy's nephew. He was kind of behind on loans, behind on rent, kind of couch surfed for a while, tried to live with Lee. He he asked for money from her, and he continued to ask for more and more money from her. And she would give him some over time. She would kind of help him out with his bills and whatnot. But suddenly he was able to pay off all of his debts, and anything he was back owed was caught up. He was good to go. And then no one saw Lee. No one could find her. And so when family and people sent out for an alert for her, they try to find her. She's gone missing. They find her a week later. She is in her home. She had been beaten to death with an iron skillet and a pepper grinder. So Steven Stevenson's, again, Bill and Peggy's nephew, his DNA was all over this place. He had actual blood on that skillet. It actually, what sealed the deal, I believe, was in her safe where she had money and some notes. The money was gone, but his DNA was inside her safe. So obviously we think we're looking into this, right? As in connection with Bill and Peggy, but Stephen he's been charged with and convicted of the murder of Lee Jennings. He is in prison serving his sentence for murder there, but they've taken him off of this case. They say that they can't fully, I think that Coy Cox is the detective on Bill and Peggy's case. His words were that he can't, there are certain things they can't fully rule out, but he's off the table. He doesn't believe for a moment that this guy is a suspect in the case. It's just a terrible, terrible coincidence that this kind of murder took place by a family member against someone else, but it's not him. That was one of the theories. Another was the trucker. So here was the newest update. So in June of last year, now in June of 2021, there was a bit of, I wouldn't say a break in the case, but enough to get it talked about again, at least to put it back on the surface some. Evidently there had been a trucker that was known to have, the morning of the murders, gone to the Truckers Chapel, the church that Bill started, and had banged on the door and was yelling Bill's name, banging and yelling Bill's name, and eventually left, has since moved out west. Well, at some point, authorities have finally tracked down and talked to different people and figured out the name of this guy who did this, who was, just to kind of check and see. This is kind of an odd behavior. It hadn't happened before. Who is this guy? So they figure out his name. They eventually are finally track him down out west. So again, this happened in 2011. So back in 2021, 10 years later, they find the guy and ask for his DNA, for him to submit a sample. And they did say that he was very cooperative and very helpful. And so he gave them whatever they needed. They ran that sample. Now, what I didn't know earlier when I was looking into this, as time has gone on, I've learned in hearing what his daughter had to say is that this was a state-run DNA facility. So they put the information in from this trucker in the Kentucky State lab, and we're still awaiting results. So they don't have that yet. That was again in, I think, June of 2021. They ran his. So again, he was very cooperative immediately. I'm not sure. I think if anything, it might be good just to rule him out. Detective Cox has said from the get-go that anything at all that they hear, they're fully following up on. They want to rule anything out before they discount it. He himself has traveled to, I think, 15 different states to talk to people and interview people and try to find some things out. He's actually said he's up for retirement soon, and he refuses to retire until this case is solved. This one's become very personal for him.
So it's not a cold case for him. It's still very much
it's very active
a
for him.
hot case. So we will not be laying this case to bed. We love GhostBed. They've been a loyal sponsor since day one, and everyone raves about them. They have super comfortable mattresses that last forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And they're made in the good old USA. Every mattress has that 20-year warranty. You can try them out for 101 nights. Not 98, not 99, but 101. If you don't like them, you can easily send them back. No hard feelings, but you won't. One of our favorite parts about GhostBed is that each mattress has that cooling technology in it so that if you get hot, like we do here in these North Carolina summers, you can stay cool. Stay hard while staying cool. That's my motto. GhostBed also offers bundles so that you can get everything you need. You don't have to really think about it. Just choose from their 4 mattresses and pick your bundle. So whether you just need a mattress and a frame or you want it all, I want it all. I want it all. And I want it now. Like their cooling pillows and their sheets, you can get the best bang for your buck. Right now, GhostBed is offering a flash sale. 35% off GhostBed bundles. It's MLK Jr. weekend, baby. 35% off. Get a mattress and adjustable base. If you use that promo code WOLFPACK, ghostbed.com/WolfPack, or 30% off everything if you use the promo code WolfPack at ghostbed.com/WolfPack. $35 a month, 0 down, 0% financing. It's if you've got Sarah Kelch credit. Go to ghostbed.com. /Wolfpack. They mentioned in the chats earlier that Sarah Kelch does not own a dilly. She said that she would bet anybody. I don't know how you would prove that bet or not, but I can tell you probably why she doesn't have a dilly. You don't need a dilly when you're sleeping on a ghost bed. A ghost bed is that sexual, it's that sensual, that you will no longer need a sex toy. Ghost bed will do it for you. Does it enough. Speaking of ghost bed, and speaking of truckers, one of your fans who happens to be a trucker bought you a ghost bed pillow this week. Gift package. It's pretty cool, right?
Getting stranger.
It's pretty cool, right? First you get the Hooters pajamas. Now you get
with a Tide pen to wash out my own blood.
He did give you a bleach pen. I'm telling you, dude. No, this guy's cool though. He's not a serial killer. He was a Marine, so he might be a serial killer actually. Actually, there's a lot. He was a Marine. Now he's a truck driver. And he's trying to become a state trooper. He might be.
I thought you were supposed to be making me feel better. You've literally not said one thing that makes me feel better.
That's not a lot of redeemable qualities right there. That's not a lot of redeemable. But he did get me 2 really nice bottles of wine. One Austrian and one French. Too bad I'm on this fucking diet and I haven't drank and I've been sober now, 15 days sober. And I hate it. Being sober is not fun at all. Nope.
You're doing it. You're doing a good job.
I am.
Yep.
I am.
So
Let's get back to
little
Peggy.
thing to think about. Yeah. So Bill was known. So Peggy's wonderful. Like I said, she was just a little bit more of a homebody with some of her health conditions lately. So no one had anything but wonderful things to. I mean, she would get out to church and go do her things, but a lot more is to be said about Bill because he was running. He was more of a little philanthropist in the community there, and kind of knew everyone. So while we talk about them being so generous and kind and philanthropic and spiritual and all of these things, don't let that be confused with naive. They were not naive. Bill was actually, more than a few people said that he was known to he wouldn't flash cash around. He really only used a debit or credit card. If someone asked for money, he would help them. He might get some money and give it to them, or more likely would take them somewhere to shop for them to get them the food or clothing that they needed. They did not discuss where they lived privately. So it's not like all these truckers just had, I'm not saying they couldn't have figured it out, but it wasn't because Bill and Peggy were inviting strangers over for dinner. They weren't. They actually kind of were very careful about their home and keeping that closed off to these people. So it wasn't that they were naive and became victims because of something like that. Now they did one of the thoughts behind with the investigation is that we talked about the nephew Steve Stevenson. We talked about the trucker idea, which they do have that. We're still waiting on that DNA to be run. Because we do know that there was DNA at the scene. I'm not sure that I said that at the beginning. There was DNA found at the scene. They've not told us of what type, but it was there. And if I recall, it was considered complicated DNA. So it wasn't suitable for phenotyping or genetic testing in that kind of way. So it's not like you're going to look at it and if you think of your ancestry or, 23andMe type things, it's not going to show you those kinds of links. It's not going to show you a pattern in height or these, hair color or whatever. It's not suitable for all of those things. Complicated DNA can also be described as more than one person. So again, they've not yet said, they've never ruled out the fact that it could be more than one person who did this. In fact, it almost feels like in some of the things I've read that they might be even, maybe even leaning toward a couple of people. So because of the way that things were staged and at the scene, for a little while, they were a little concerned about either a ritualistic type murder or that people staged it to look like it was ritualistic. They found people in the Wiccan community there or whatever, they talked to different people like that, specifically just ask questions, and they've kind of ruled out the idea that was the thing. They think it was, they do think it was probably someone who knew them, and they do, again, think that there might be some reasoning behind the time and the time that it took place. I've seen in the chats a couple people have said things like they entertained, maybe they were having someone over to dinner because they're so kind, and maybe it was someone who was not mentally well and wound up getting themselves killed. Maybe, but again, keep in mind, authorities have said from day one, and we don't know exactly why, but they have said most certainly that they think that the killings occurred upon someone entering the home, not that they had spent time with them first. Okay,
and
also
that's just because that's because the evidence off the pacemaker.
Well, the evidence off the pacemaker, or I said pacemaker, that's just one example of a mechanical device that would keep time, right? So let's just say pacemaker, but I'm not sure exactly they've not told us what it was. Well, that shows us exactly when they died, but I would assume that maybe, I don't know what I can't speculate as to why they know, but they seem fairly certain that it happened pretty quickly upon, the intruders getting in. Now, here's the thing too. Do you remember how I said that they have to buzz to get in these condos? So someone buzzed to get in at least, close to 1:00 in the morning. So I would assume that that's also somebody that we know, right? You're not letting someone in that you don't know at 1:00 in the morning.
Right.
The buzzer system.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're 74 and your wife's
But
74
they
and
found
in
the
the middle of
nephew's
the night.
blood, right? They found the nephew's blood on the frying pan.
Okay. I think you were responding to chats at that time. They found his
was a
blood on the
different-
frying pan of the woman that he did kill. He was charged and he was convicted and charged with the murder of another woman around the same time, which was crazy coincidence.
I mean, if their nephew is fucking killing people, I think he'd be my number one suspect.
Well, they've ruled him out on this.
Oh.
And they have his DNA.
Oh.
And they have
So
the
nephew
DNA
got
at
friends?
the scene of they are all just bludgeoning people.
I don't know, man. It's confusing. It's sad. Like, why
Yeah, it's very
Peggy?
sad.
It's got to be related to the church, though. You know what I mean? Like, if they're in a condo and it's got to be church related,
Well,
man. It's got to be the
like I
church,
said,
church related.
Well, I reached out to Coy Cox and I reached out to the daughter, but they both are pretty vocal. Probably won't be having the daughter on here now, but
Why?
I will tell you because
why?
You know why?
Because I said it. I made a dildo joke.
Yes.
Come on.
No.
If you rearranged my house, if you rearranged Andrea's house,
These are her dead
there's
parents.
no way that you wouldn't put a fucking dildo out in public.
Listen, so Detective Coy Cox's number, I'll put it on Instagram tomorrow when I do a post about this. His number is 859. This is, I think, him personally, actually. 859-334-8496. Again, that's 859.
Doxing somebody right now? Is that even are we breaking the law?
No, this is the number he wants out for people. This is the detective's number. Gotcha. 859-334-8496. So he has said, he's even gotten out there to say, so much as even recently, like, hey, look, he's like, I don't care what you have to say it. If you think you have anything, right? And we hear this all the time. Like, you may think that this little tidbit is not important. And he's like, hey, let us decide that. I would much rather you give me that information and me throw it away than you hang on to it, right? So he said, look, he's even encouraging people to just use a burner phone. He said, use a burner phone, call me, throw it away. I don't care. I just, any little bit would be great. So anyway, super sad. And it's just wild to have been staged and look the way it does. I don't know. And like I said, pillars in the community. I think over 1,500
crazy
people
enough
came to
that
their
a trucker
funeral.
might do it. I'm going with trucker on this one. Going with trucker on this one. I'm going with my gut. My gut says it's a trucker.
That's not a far stretch. Yeah. No, I mean, it easily could be.
Yeah, they say never trust a hoe, never trust a trucker or state trooper or Marine.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So that's what I got. That's it. But you guys,
it's a wild story. What do you think? I mean, what is your theory? You got, I mean, obviously you have one. What's your gut tell you?
I think it easily could be a trucker. I think it was someone who's been in their home before, because I just don't think that they would have buzzed someone in at 1 a.m. because I think if we hadn't specifically heard that they were not naive, it wasn't that they were just older and sweet and give and let anyone in their home. They didn't tell people where they lived, so that Bill wouldn't have buzzed someone in at 1 a.m. unless it's someone that he was familiar with and felt comfortable enough. So I do think it's someone that has been in there before.
Yeah, but you could trick somebody too. You know what I mean? Give it,
I was trying to read that comment. Maintaining cardiac rhythm logging data seems like it could be used nefariously. No, if I'm taking your comment correctly, you said, let me go up. You said, you said, well, it can be there to maintain rhythm. I'm assuming the time device, but logging data seems like it could be used nefariously. Well, first of all, it's electronically logged consistently. No different than like clothes circuit TVs, like your cameras at a gas station or whatever, right? Like you're on camera, you are recorded through stoplight cams, like whatever, all the time, right? With times and dates and things that affect you. So, or that you could be implicated for, right? So it's not that someone sitting here logging things on them. It's just electronically recorded. So the minute it stops because you're dead, now we have that information, which is a wonderful piece of information in a murder, obviously, right? If I'm taking your comment, if I'm understanding what you said correctly. But yeah, I do think it's someone they knew, or at least were familiar with. Yeah.
Bizarro land.
It is
That's why I love
sad.
true
Ugh,
crime, man,
it's
because it always leaves you with like a little bit of makes you wonder. And that's you gotta be careful.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm done. No, I mean it's just like those 4 chicks in Idaho. It's like, do you think they went to bed thinking hours later that somebody was going to come in and just stab them to death? Like, you think Peggy and then went to bed thinking that they're going to wake up and get bludgeoned to death? I mean, damn, man, they probably just went to bed just like you guys are about to go to bed tonight, alone in your apartment, all by yourself, 110 pounds, dark hair, partly Russian. You never know. Somebody's going to kick in your door and bludgeon your skull in.
That's true. So on a lighter note, when I was thinking about doing cases, and I still want to do this one day, but I was going to do like a stupid, do you remember like stupid criminals, stupid crimes stuff?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to do, I didn't feel like making a list though, so I didn't do it. But there was one amazing story. I'm not sure what the city or state is, but you guys might have heard of it, but it happened a couple years ago at a Walmart. The cashier staged an armed robbery with her boyfriend. So he came in and they had it all set up, and he took the money from her. I think it was like $2,400. He took the money from her in this whole, Tony award-winning drama-filled scene, I'm sure. And then they used that money to buy engagement rings at that Walmart, and he proposed.
Oh man.
And that's all there is to it. That's why we didn't do that on the show tonight, but I thought it was a great story. I felt like that was heartwarming.
You talked about dumb criminals and somebody wrote Hunter Biden.
Oh, that's fair. That is fair.
Touche. He is a criminal and he is pretty fucking stupid. So
oh my goodness.
And I can say that because that's not a Democrat or Republican thing, right? Like that's just
it's someone who's done illegal things, including a lot of drugs and other illegal things. Yeah.
And his dick is in every he has literally taken a picture of his unit in every scenario possible. Water sliding, showering, out in the yard. Like, I mean,
yes,
you can make a whole calendar of his genitalia pictures.
Oh, hey, Whitney.
I've taken like four pics. Probably all in my bedroom. Maybe one in a hotel room. Send back to the old wife. I think I do.
Okay.
That's it.
Ashley, pull his plug. Where are you? There? Is she there with you?
I wish. Duke's here with me. He's looking at me with these eyes like, Dad, what? What?
Well, that's it for tonight, guys. I hope you all have a good night.
It was a great show. It was a great show. I love Nightshift. I love a good. I love it when you bring out these unsolved mysteries. Fucking hate them. I hate the unsolved ones, Andrea. Now I'm gonna think about it all week. Be like, who killed Peggy, man? Who rearranged Peggy's house? Was it the elf on the shelf? What was it? Was it aliens?
But they marked things too. It's just so odd. I don't know. I keep thinking about that. Like,
I mean, that's so odd that it's probably
and to spend at least 2 hours after they died, either just in the house or leaving and coming back for that postmortem stab wound. It's so bizarre.
Like I said, truckers are bizarre people.
Yeah, nothing yet.
Especially if you're a trucker going to, especially if a trucker is going to trucker church.
Well, I don't think that's bad. Why is that bad?
Leary, target rich environment.
What, Christians and truckers are known serial killers?
No. Truckers are known serial killers, and Christians are a target-rich environment. You can go in there and say what you want to hear.
But that would make then the other truckers would be the victims in that scenario. The church was for the truckers.
Yeah, but it was led by like Christians that weren't truckers.
Just Bill.
Bill ain't no trucker, dude.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Bill don't know the streets. Bill don't know them streets, man. I'm gonna find out though.
I'm not sure that you're sober. All right.
I'm 100% sober, dude. I haven't had a freaking drop of alcohol. That's probably the problem. I haven't had a drop of alcohol forever.
What?
And I'm only sober because I'm losing weight. So calm down out there. Folks that were like, you can do it, Eric. You can stay sober. Like I'm staying sober for like 14 more days. Then I'm relapsing like a man, like a real man. Gonna really relapse, have a comeback story. Just like Tiger Woods. Cheat on my wife, do some crazy shit. Now I'm going to tell the world I'm sorry. After I've done all the crazy shit that I want to do. I'll apologize, be back in everybody's graces, get a second chance. And then go golfing with my son. Win a couple tournaments. And go off the rails with my son.
Okay.
Go down a long, dark.
Making things up now. All right.
All right, guys. Until next time. Guns up.
Oh, giddy up. Good night, y'all.